Do you want to travel to Japan? Then maybe you think about which things you need when you go to Japan and which things are necessary for a traveler inside Japan. So basically I have endless things that I also brought from Japan and that I also used in Japan on a daily basis. So let's talk about them. And also, if you want to be prepared for your travels in Japan, then don't forget to follow this channel. So the first thing that I want to showcase is a really beneficial thing when you are in Japan, and it's this kind of mini towel. So I basically got it in a like Mononoke design. So you have some with Ghibli designs. I hope that you can see it. And basically this towel has two really good functions. So in Japan in the summertime it is really hot. So there you will need a towel for when you're sweating much. Because really it is so hot that really sweat is running all over your body. So in this case I would recommend this towel. And you can find it at Kombinis or at a Ghibli shop, for example. I bought this one. You can nearly find them anywhere. And the second point why you really need those towels is when you go to the toilet, for example. So you don't have like paper tissues to always dry your hands. So in this case they're also good to just use them as drying your hands. So this is the first thing that I would really recommend when you go to Japan. Another thing that I would recommend for you when you go to Japan that is pretty beneficial, I just told you that it's really hot in Japan. And basically they also sell this at the Konbini. Those are wipes. If you don't want to use the towel, those are like some cleaning wipes that you can use for getting rid of your sweat. And also they have a cooling effect. And there are many things in Japan that have a cooling effect. For example, one thing that I brought from Japan is this one here. I don't know if you can, maybe, okay, maybe the camera can focus. Oh, okay, the camera is focusing, perfect. And this is basically called Hinyari Point Lotion. And basically it's a normal lotion like, let me take a look, like this. You can see it here. And you can just like put it around your hand and it will get pretty cooling. And right now we have winter, so maybe it will be a bit too cold for me, but this is like just a cream. It has a nice simple smell and also it cools your whole body. I can really recommend it because then you can maybe survive a bit more longer in Japan's daunting heat. The next thing, that is something that recently also was introduced in Germany, but I saw it in Japan the first time. It is this one here. I don't know if you can. Perfect. It's a Haru Kaido, and basically Haru is sticking, so it is basically a sticking pad, and it is warm up to, you can even see it here, up to 12 hours. So in the winter, for example, it can get pretty cold, so you can just take that pad and just put it on your clothing, for example, on your t-shirt, what you're wearing. And really, it helped me out many times when you're getting cold. So for example, when I was hiking in Japan, in some mountains and it was snowing, this thing can really save your life. And also, for example, when I didn't have like those warm bottles with water inside, when I was sick, you can also put it to a towel and then just put it inside the towel and it will also be nice and warm in the winter time. Because in general also in Japan there are many earthquakes, so when they build buildings they kind of try to build them a bit more flexible. So if an earthquake occurs they can kind of put the pressure away. But the problem with this is that with an earthquake, of course the pressure gets away easier, but there are many small, let's say like holes where air can go through. So in the winter time in my apartment also in Japan it was pretty cold. And the next thing I want to recommend to you is a Suica. So it's basically this card here. Please focus, camera. There we go. And it is a Suica. And basically what is a Suica? So when you drive a train in Japan, if you use a ticket, for example, so you need to look up from which station will you start, for example at Shinjuku, and where will you go, for example to Chiba. And then the problem with there is that you need to find the exact ticket from that station, because if you just drive 4 stations it will cost, let's say 180 yen. If you drive 5 stations it will cost 220 yen. And there you even need to calculate in your head, okay, how much yen will it cost when I drive to that station? And that can be really exhausting And if you buy the wrong ticket, for example, then you cannot go through the gates, because before you enter a train station, there are some gates in front where you need to input your ticket. And if you do a mistake with this, it can be a bit hard to get out of the station. I also had that experience. And basically, the Japanese train system is that depending on the region, the train company is different. And even inside Tokyo, you have different train companies. So if you need to ride a different train, you need to buy a new ticket for that train. And you kind of see what I tell you here. Just buying all those tickets is just exhausting. So for this case, you have the Suica, and that is basically something that every Japanese person uses. It's a card that you log in and you log out. So basically you can put money on this card and then you log in and log out. So let's take the example with Chiba and Shinjuku. If you go inside in Shinjuku, you press the card on the gate and it will sign in, okay, he got inside the station at Shinjuku. And if you go to Chiba and let's say you need to take a new train at Akihabara. So you go from Shinjuku to Akihabara to Chiba. Then you go to Akihabara and you need to change the station. So you don't need to buy a new ticket. You can just scan it inside. It will pay the fare for Shinjuku to Akihabara. And then you can log it in again from Akihabara to Chiba. So you see it is pretty easy because you don't need to buy a ticket. You don't need to think about which train you take. You just scan in and out. And it's the same with buses too. And another good thing for this is too that you can also use it to pay the airport buses. So if you take a bus from the airport. And a last thing is that when you maybe suddenly see, oh, I don't want to go there. Maybe you buy a ticket from Shinjuku to Akihabara, but on the way you want to go out, or you're like, I want to go out at this station and do something else. Or maybe you see, this shop is already closed and you want to go back. Then you already paid the ticket. So if you buy the ticket from Shinjuku to Akihabara, you also have to pay the fare, even if you go out earlier. And with the Suica card, you're more flexible. So you can just say, okay, I want to go out in between, and then you just pay the fare for the stations that you rode. So with this, I would really, really recommend to get the Suica. But you need to be careful, because I know you can use the Suica at Matsumoto too, which is not in the Tokyo region. You can also use it in Hokkaido. But I think in Kyoto is a different card, and I also think in Nagano, for example. So depending on where you go to Japan, you need to get a different card. It is basically the same system as the Suica, but it's not the Suica company. So you need to watch out for this when you go to some different places. And the next thing that I would recommend to you is about cash or about credit cards in Japan. So basically when you go to Japan as a traveler or maybe as an exchange student or in general, you need cash. And I would advise you to have cash with you around, because at many situations in Japan you need to have cash. For example, the Suica, if you want to charge the Suica, you need cash to charge it. If you want to go to a restaurant, sometimes you cannot pay by credit card, so it's crucial to have cash. And in this case, the most easiest way is, I think, you just go to a kombini and get the cash from the ATM there. The fares are not that bad actually, and it's the most easiest way to get cash. And if you want to have a more easier life in Japan, it's not sponsored by the way, I would recommend you, I just need to see that there's no private information, Wise. You can see it here. It's basically a company that, it's an international bank account, and you can create a bank account for many currencies. I just created one for Japan, for yen. And it's really easy to get that card. You get it within 1 week, I think. And I used it in Japan because the fares of this company are pretty low. And it's just really easy to use. You just put your money there, and you can, for example, I put money in euro there, and then I said I want to put it to yen. And you have that course of euro to yen, right? And it changes every day and every week and so on. And you can choose when you want to change the money. So for example, when 1 euro is 170 yen, then you want to change it to yen. So you can even choose your own course. And also, if you want to get money from a kombini at Japan, you don't need to pay fares. You don't need to pay fees. That was pretty good. I think you can get around 200 euro 2 times a month. and then you need to pay fees, and even if you need to pay fees, it's not that much actually. So the next thing that I would recommend you when you're in Japan is a travel adapter. And basically, let me show you the one that I'm using. It's this one basically here. It's, let's just say it's mini with an X. You can find it on Amazon. I just paid, I think, 28 euros for it at the time. And basically, you see it has the Japanese plug here. And I just have it connected to the German one right now. So we have this one. It has the adapters for America and every country included. And basically a good one with this is I can use it here in Germany too. It has fast charging. So you can charge your laptop and your fast pretty fast. It's the fastest charger that I used until now. I can charge my phone in 40 minutes or something. And also a good thing is that you have 3 inputs here, USB-A and 2 USB-Cs that you can use when charging, and also there's a small LED that indicates if it's charging. So I don't know, I had it sometimes that I went to somewhere and I thought that my charger was broken or that my cable was broken, but actually it was just the socket that was not working, and that was the LED that indicated it for me. And yeah, it is just way more convenient. So for example, sometimes in the airplanes you don't even have your native plugs, so that's why you should have this travel adapter. It's not that much. You don't need to get it from this company. I would recommend it because I had some good experiences with it, but you can just take anything. But I would advise you to get some travel adapters. If you lose your travel adapter or if you cannot make it in time to get one, I would advise you to go to a combini. You can find them there. But even there, I have to say, I didn't find an adapter for the German plug to the Japanese one in the combinis. So I needed to go to an extra big department store to get that one. And like, let's say your phone is already pretty low and you cannot charge it and you need to find it, but you cannot use your phone. It's kind of stressful. So in this case, I would recommend to you buy it in advance, and it will be much easier. The next one, of course, is a portable charger. Of course, if you're traveling, you should need a charger for your things. I don't know, I have a camera, for example. For this, I need a charger. I have my phone that I want to charge. In Japan also, if your phone goes empty and you don't really know Japanese, it's kind of hard, I think, to find back to your hotel. So I would really recommend to you to have a portable charger. Also in Japan, usually at combinis when you enter, there are also some portable chargers that you can rent. So if you lose your own or you don't have one, you can also rent some for some money and charge your phone there. That is pretty nice. That is something that I can recommend to you. And now we come to the next one. And usually when people go to Japan, we pay so much money for the plane ticket, we pay so much money for the hotels, so we need to save some money somewhere, right? And usually it's when we go out eating, maybe we just eat something at the combini. I've been there, but there's one thing you shouldn't save money for, and that's a travel insurance. So basically, when you go to Japan, the likelihood that something happens to you is not that high. But if something happens to you, oh boy, it will cost much money. And I don't know how it's in other countries, but in Germany, I think for 12 months travel insurance that I wanted to do for my exchange semester, I paid about 300 euros, I think. And if we think about it, just being on the sure side that if something happens, you don't need to pay too much money is something that can be reassuring. And also, if you're at a different country with a different climate, different food, different environment, then your likelihood of getting ill or getting in some trouble is higher, I think, than in your native country. For example, I also had heard a story of a person that went to Japan and there they broke their arm and they didn't have a travel insurance, and that is pretty much money that you need to pay there. So yeah, just be on the sure side, buy travel insurance. I don't think it's even that expensive. Another thing is translation app. I would just advise you to use Google Translator. Even if you cannot understand the kanji, you can just write it in there too. If you don't know how to write it, you can speak it in there too, or you can type it in there. So that is pretty crucial, I think. If you don't understand something, you can use it. Also in Japan, when I went to some restaurants, for example, often there's some really specific vocabularies, like a certain fish name, or there are some things that you need to watch out, and you can just use the Google Translator app and just translate the menu, for example, from the restaurant if they don't have an English menu. And just when you want to order something, you can say kore desu, kore o hitotsu onegai shimasu, and so on. By the way, if you want to learn Japanese, I created a workbook just for people that want to go to Japan. And basically it includes 10 situations you will encounter in Japan, like taking a taxi, checking into a hotel, riding the bus, riding the train. So the most basic situations that travelers will meet in Japan. You will have some conversation examples that are based on my real life experience. So if you want to have a nicer, smoother travel, just take a look here in the QR code or just take the link in my description to my website, hiramekiinsight.com. So the next point is medication. So for the medication point, I just have some examples like this or like this. So for example, in general, Japan has different medication than we have in other countries. For example, I was having a fever, and in Germany you will get something called ibuprofen, and we get about 600 milligram that we need to take 1 to 2 times a day as an adult. For example, when I talked to my Japanese girlfriend and saw her medication for fever, she takes about 100 milligram 2 times a day. So let's just think what happens when you get fever in Japan and you need the right medication. Of course, some doctors in Japan know about this, so they will just advise you to take 6 times 100 milligrams. That's what I did in Japan. But this will also get expensive. So in this case, I would just advise you to get some general medication for like fever, or maybe if your throat is sick, when you go to Japan. And also some other useful like medicational things that I found in Japan that I want to showcase to you are like the following 3 things here. The first one is this one. If you look at this. And it's from a company called Ota. And basically when you eat too much or when you drink too much, so if you eat too much tasty Japanese food or if you drink too much Japanese alcohol, it's a medicine that you can take for relieving your stomach or taking some work off of it. If you cannot sleep good in Japan, you have this kind of eye mask. So this is something that I can really recommend to you. It's just a cooling eye mask. It's a one-time use thing, but it's pretty nice. It cools by itself and it's like relieves stress from the eyes. That's something that I really liked. And you have these pads here. And basically if you have fever, you can put them on your skin here and it will kind of cool down your head a bit and make it more easier for you. You could technically also use them in the summer when it's too hot, but in Japan it is used for people that are having fever. And those are really practical, nice things. I really use them pretty often in Japan, and that's some things that I can recommend to you. Also, one nice thing of Japan is also like these things here. If you can see them, it's called megusuri. So me as eye and gusuri or kusuri as medicine. But basically it's not really medicine, it's just eye drops. I don't know, I like the Japanese eye drops pretty much, so you can buy them there too, of course. There are some, like my favorites that I found in Japan. And also I asked a Japanese native what they would recommend from things in Japan that are pretty useful, and I didn't really find it here in Germany, and I don't know that people use it, but it's this one here. So just imagine the situations, and of course I never experienced that situation. You went to your favorite ramen shop in Japan and your ramen guy just asked you, "Ninniku iremasu ka?" And you happen to say, "Ninniku mashi desu," which basically translates as you want to have as much garlic as you could put inside a ramen bowl. And he takes 5 to 6 to 7 scoops of that garlic and puts it inside your ramen bowl. And in this situation, maybe you will have a date afterwards, or maybe you will meet someone afterwards. And this is where this comes pretty handy. I mean, if you take ninikumashi with a ramen, then it's already over, I think. But if you don't have anything you can do, you can take this portable mouthwash here. Basically, it's called Konai Seijo Eki. So it's basically just like I said, a portable mouthwash. You can just use it every time when you go there. I don't know. There's some foods in Japan that have a strong smell, and maybe if you don't want to bother the people around you, this can be really nice. I also saw it in like some small cups. Of course, I never had to use them, but yeah, this is just a good thing to have. Maybe if you have your next date with a Japanese girl, or you meet a Japanese friend, or who knows. So yeah, those are the essentials that I would recommend to everyone going to Japan. If there's some other things that you think are important, just write them down in the comments. If you want to learn Japanese and prepare for your travels, like I said, just go on my website. I made a workbook for this topic. And as always, thank you for listening. Have a great day. Mata kondo yoroshiku ne.